Okay, album
right.
time, guys.
All right. I am up first. We are covering Steve Earle for the second time on the podcast. This is his album El Corazon. And in the opening montage, you heard Tannytown, and now you're going to hear a clip from Poison Lovers.
Why do we do this to each other? I guess we were always poison love.
All right, El Corazon. I think it's El Corazon is probably what I should be saying for all
Corazon, yes.
Corazon. El Corazon.
The heart.
The Heart by Steve Earle comes in at number 1,518 in the 1990s on Best Ever Albums, number 161 in 1997, number 9,259 of all time. It's actually Steve Earle's sixth highest rated album, behind 1996's I Feel All Right, 1995's Train a Comin', 2002's Jerusalem, 1988's Copperhead Road, and the other album that we covered, 1986's Guitar Town. El Corazon did not make Rolling Stone's list, and Steve Earle is ranked number 852 of overall artist rankings on Best Ever Albums. And so a little history we haven't really, well, actually, I'll go to that in a second. This is Steve Earle's seventh studio album. It was released on October 7th, 1997. The genres include alt country, country rock, outlaw country, and contemporary folk. His highest charting album was 2009's Towns. That hit number 19 in the U.S. And the highest charting single, well, it depends if you're talking about the rock charts or the country charts, because he hits both of that. His song Guitar Town hit number 7 in the U.S. country charts, and 1988's Copperhead Road hit number 10 in the U.S. rock charts. Influences include Bob Dylan, the Rolling Stones, Bruce Springsteen, John Prine, Neil Young, Willie Nelson, the Pogues, Hank Williams, Waylon Jennings, Guy Clark, Merle Haggard, the Flying Burrito Brothers, and Steve Earle's hero, Townes Van Zandt, who we covered, episode 1, season 1. Yep.
Wow.
Pilot episode, yep.
First segment, if I remember correctly, too.
I think it was, yeah. Artists that Steve Earle has influenced include Jack Ingram, Robbie Folks, the Jayhawks, Wilco, Old 97s, and Whiskey Town. So you guys can tell I do like Steve Earle. He was born Stephen Fane Earle on January 17th, 1955 in Fort Monroe, Virginia, though his family moved to Texas, the San Antonio area specifically, when he was a little bit before his second birthday. Steve Earle began learning to play guitar at the age of 11, and I just saw this, but I didn't get more info on it. Apparently, he ran away from home at the age of 14 to find his idol, Townes Van Zandt. I don't think he was successful with that, but he did run away for a period of time. He was a pretty rebellious kid, got into some trouble. He did drop out of school at 16, and at which point he moved to Houston with his 19-year-old uncle. And actually, when he was out in Houston, he did meet Townes Van Zandt and struck up a relationship with him. Steve Earle is very political. If you know anything about him, he's has a lot of very left-leaning political views. He's a self-proclaimed socialist, and he cites that the Vietnam War was really the reason for his politicization. While he was not drafted into the Vietnam War, a number of his friends were, and he saw the ramifications of that, and that's when he really started, becoming politically active. He moved to Nashville at the age of 19. I did some blue collar work there, playing music at night, and he starts writing songs, and he actually played bass in Guy Clark's band for a period of time. But he grew tired of Nashville, he moved back to Texas, and he formed a band called the Dukes. So he's there for a while. He goes back to Nashville. So he's kind of going back and forth between Texas and Nashville. In Nashville, again, he worked as a songwriter for a couple music publishers, and he co-wrote a song, "When You Fall in Love," which was recorded by Johnny Lee, and that reached number 14 in the country charts. So he started writing some hit songs. He also, I thought this was interesting, he wrote a song called "Mustang Wine," which was recorded by Carl Perkins, who, if you guys remember, was a big influence on George Harrison and the Beatles. So, so getting some props there. Carl Perkins recording your stuff, that's a pretty big deal. So the publishing group that he was writing for, they started their own label, and they invited Steve Earle to record some of his own songs, and he released an EP in 1982 with the Dukes. And that EP was sent to Epic Records, who ended up signing Earle to a recording contract. But that didn't last too long. Earle notoriously had issues with various record companies. And so that there was a number of tumultuous relationships with some record companies that he was working with. He did end up signing a 7-record deal with MCA Records, and his debut album, Guitar Town, was released in 1986. And again, we did cover that back in season 3. His third album, 1988's Copperhead Road, this is kind of like a crossover hit. He starts to become a little bit more commercially successful. It was a hit particularly in the rock scene, but not as much in the country scene. So he kind of, people that were in the country scene kind of, I don't know if they were upset necessarily, but they certainly didn't feel connected to that album. So, and really Steve Earle is as much country as he is rock. I think throughout his career, he's really honed in both of those genres. His fourth album was released in 1990, but after that, he delved heavily into his further into a drug habit, and so he really didn't record for like 4 to 5 years after that record. MCA dropped him at this point, so he only did a couple records with them, didn't finish that full contract for 7 records. And in 1993, he was arrested for heroin possession, and he was arrested again in 1994 for cocaine and weapons possession, and he was sentenced to jail for a year, but he was released after serving 60 days and then went into rehab and started to get clean. So these albums kind of in the mid-late 90s are kind of coming off the heels of his addiction and time in jail and really kind of the lower parts of his life. So in 1996, he actually created his own label called E Squared Records, and that's when he released his 6th album, I Feel All Right. And this album, El Corazon, was released a year later. So I don't have a ton of information on this particular album, but it does, again, come off the heels of, kind of Steve Earle. I don't know if I would say reinventing himself, but definitely, continuing on his career without having some of the troubles that he had in the past. Other interesting facts about Steve Earle: he hosted a couple of radio shows. One was on Air America. Remember that show, that station? It wasn't just
to be like the liberal Fox News.
The liberal Fox News that did not do well and eventually went under. But he actually didn't just do politics. He did music on that as well. That lasted from August of 2004 to June of 2007. And then he had his own show on Sirius XM's Outlaw Country radio channel called Hardcore Troubadour. He also had some acting roles. He was, you guys might have remembered him as Waylon on The Wire, and he was also in Treme, so working with David Simon on those HBO shows. He's been married 7 times, including twice to the same woman. Actually, I think by the time that his first album came out, he was on his 4th marriage. So
we've had some guys who've been putting in those because Ben Folds, right? Wasn't he married like 5 times too?
I don't remember that. Was he? Who did that?
I think so. I think he was married 5 times, if I remember correctly.
Jeez. Yeah. Well, Steve Earle also had a son from maybe his 3rd wife, I believe, Justin Townes Earle, who was a musician as well. He actually, unfortunately, passed away in 2020 from an accidental overdose of fentanyl-laced cocaine. Yeah, so there's certainly the substance abuse there. I actually saw Justin Townes Earle play live once, and he did this amazing thing where he was playing one acoustic guitar, but I'm hearing 2 different parts, and the way he played it, I'm like, this guy's doing unbelievable stuff. So he was a pretty talented musician as well. And overall, Steve Earle has 22 studio albums, including 5 with the Dukes, 1 with the Del McCoury Band, and 1 with Sean Colvin, who we talked about a couple weeks ago. So there's a Steve Earle, Sean Colvin album out there. So this is one of the many Steve Earle records. Let's start with John. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, man, sign me up for Steve Earle right here. I am a fan of what he does. I almost describe this as what I want Springsteen to sound like sometimes in many ways.
There's definitely vestiges of Springsteen.
I think he does Springsteen better than Springsteen sometimes, if I'm being honest. That was kind of my takeaway, that and the fact that this is alt country is such an interesting genre because I'd say roughly half of it I really like. Like I liked Sweetheart of the Rodeo when we did that by the Byrds, Matt, back in the day. I really liked that Uncle Tupelo album we did. And then like the other half of it is boring to me. And I can't figure out what makes a song what makes a particular album, because there's certain artists that some of their albums I connect with, and then other ones from the same artist I'm like, not as much for me. And I think what really appeals to me on this one is this album just sounds great. There's these great choruses. His sort of world weary voice works really well with the style of songs that he's writing. It also, as you were reading who he was influenced by, Matt, I heard bits and pieces of all of them, right? A little bit of the Dylan delivery, but a prettier version of it. A little bit of Townes Van Sant that we did before in terms of his ability to tell a story, right? Springsteen in sort of the pop sensibility that rings through a lot of these songs that can cross over from just being niched as alt country. And it's got Willie Nelson, you mentioned. I definitely hear that a little bit too, because he's got a voice that's like a cousin of what Willie Nelson's voice is, which is like, is this a pretty voice or is this an ugly voice, or is the answer kind of like both at the same time, that within the same song it can sound pretty and ugly. He's a great like duet singer too. That song that you picked, Matt, Poison Lovers, is one of my favorites on this one. But then that New York City song with the Super Suckers sounds like almost like a late REM type song, I'd say. And he almost veers into like Michael Stipe sonic sounds. So there's a lot. It didn't bore me at all, this album. And it was a heartbreak album to some degree. And I'm thinking that's why it was called El Corazon, like just different like love stories or songs of the heart, how you're affected, right, in your emotions or your heart, you're pulling your heartstrings in different ways. But he's got that gift that like Tom Waits has too, that he can write very sincere songs, but they never seem hacky. They seem well lived and well earned, right, for him to weigh in on them a little bit. So I also really like that Guitar Town album that we did it, but this is different. I would say this has a little bit more. It's funny that you said one of his biggest hits, if I remember, Matt, like going backwards, wasn't that Guitar Town album one where like the country crew like wanted to embrace him, but like his politics kind of put him at odds with them a little bit, and the Nashville-ness didn't,
and that's been throughout his whole career, right? He doesn't really fit the typical narrative story of the Nashville country singer,
Well, and this doesn't seem like it's screaming for Nashville approval at this point. Like the Guitar Town definitely seemed a little bit 1 foot in country music, while this has elements. This is the alt part of alt country, I'd say, and this owes a lot more to like, I think, traditional rock fused with country elements, like what the Byrds and Bob Dylan were playing with in the 60s. And when you hear a mainstream Willie Nelson song, or the songs that are by a country artist but they can cross over into like pop radio, I'd say is kind of which is really in the 90s seems to be a lane that females largely are like residing in, I think. The guitar, I like how there's distortion on the side. This is the first alt country album I've heard with some distorted guitar, which is wild, to have both of those things together, but I'm here for it. I liked it quite a bit. And yeah, I can't believe you said this was like only his like 7th best album in terms of how best ever albums ranked it, or something really low. Guitar Town was above it, and I like that one. I wouldn't say I like this one better or worse than that one. I like them both about the same because they were different albums, and this passes the test of, do I want to hear more Steve Earle? And my answer is yes, going forward. So that's kind of the greatest compliment I can give a review that I give. So thumbs up for this one for me.
Yeah, I am the same way. What I really like about this album, I think it gets better the more I listen to it. I think the first listen through, I was kind of, sometimes the alt country like takes a while to grow on me. I struggle to kind of pick out what's different from one artist to another in the genre. Like they're all kind of they're all kind of doing the same thing. Sometimes they sound the same, but you have to like dig a little to get the elements, or I do, to get the elements to see why it's better than one band or another, or why I respond to it more. I guess that's true for every album we listen to one extent or another, but I really like his versatility on this album. He's seemingly, I mean, right from the jump with Christmas in Washington, that's such an interesting like start to an album. It's kind of like a Christmas song, but it's also like a lament. It's political, like you said, Matt. Like the lyrics are there for that, and it's sad. It's got the sadness, and it's not like an upbeat song. Typically, I would think like if you're trying to make a statement, opening track, you want strong. So he kind of like eases you into his vibe, and then right into like Taney Town, which is like completely different, like tempo and kilter and vibe, and I really like that. And then he seemingly every track does something a little different, and he goes from more rock guitar sounding songs to more acoustic guitar sounding songs to more like contemporary country to more classic country with like a fiddle or something. And he's got these, there's a couple of different bands that appear on some of the tracks, like Del McCoury Band and Fairfield 4 and the Super Suckers. So he like they're named in the credits along with him, and they added a whole like different flavor to whatever song he's doing. I like the duet, like John said, that was again like another iteration. So there's a wide variety on here that kept my interest, and as a result, it also kept me wanting to see what was coming next, what he was going to do differently, and that I really like that. I also like his lyrics are really strong. I think he's a great songwriter. That also comes through and elevates him in my mind. And then I think the X factor is like his lived experience and like the soulfulness and like his emotion coming through on the songs. That I think that separates him as well from some of the other alt country bands that we've listened to. And yeah, I didn't even know his music. I knew of him from The Wire, like you said, Matt, first, and then I knew he was, I just saw this interesting guy and actor, and then found out he was an artist after the fact. And so that was my first exposure to him. And I think he does a cover. I think he's on one of the seasons of The Wire's theme song as well.
The final season, yeah.
Yeah, the fifth one. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so that's great. But yeah, big thumbs up for me. I'm excited as well to hear more of his work. So no complaints here.
Yeah, I've known this album for a while. I've had it for a while. I first heard it from my uncle, who I know Josh, you've met JB.
Yep.
Yeah. And this is JB core, right? We talk about Matt core. Like this is my uncle who's got his own Good Morning Americana is the name of his radio show that he does. He's back on it now, and this is the type of stuff he plays. He loves this Americana, roots rock, alt country stuff, and his knowledge is goes very deep on that. And so I first heard of Steve Earle from him. I think my brother got this record, and I kind of, when I started really kind of getting into this genre, this is kind of one of the ones that I grabbed first. And I really like coming back to it this week. I like the fact that you guys enjoy this too. So it's kind of cool to have other people, have similar reactions that you do to certain artists, particularly ones that like don't usually get a lot of play, right? Like most people don't know Steve Earle as a musician or really as anything, right? Mm-hmm. But he certainly has a ton of stuff. I love the variety of this. I think I'm with you, Josh. I think that he can do it all right here, right? He's got songs like Taney Town, Here I Am is a big, in New York City. These are like big, full-blown rock songs, distorted guitar. Taney Town kind of sounds like a Neil Young song with that the harmonica, the way that he plays there, kind of like the gritty Neil Young guitar sound, which I absolutely love. And then he kind of goes more country and bluegrass. I'll Still Carry You Around, full-blown, like, that we got a bluegrass song on there done really well. The rest, and the Other Side of Town's got. I like the production of that song because it's kind of like, it's like they purposefully make it sound like an old record that's being played on that, so, and they mix it up pretty good. So it kind of, this is kind of that variety within an album that I really do enjoy. It's not like you're doing all the fast songs up front and then all the slow songs at the back, or vice versa. This is kind of really every other song is kind of like throws a different little flavor at you, and I really do like that. His voice is fantastic. He's got just such a great rock, like weathered rock as well as country. He's got that country twang in it, and I know we've talked about this before, that sometimes there's just the way that the person's voice like can take a song and make me go, okay, this isn't for me. And a country twang there's a very kind of specific kind of country twang that I like this, versus kind of something that, is going to be, more of the Garth Brooks, Nashville kind of pop country twang, which is like the Shania Twain, which just, is makes you go automatically, yeah, this is a little bit of a different type of sound. So it's hard to exactly explain the difference. It's just, I know it when I hear it, right? It's more of this to me is more grounded in a little bit more of a, kind of like a weathered, lived in experience that's not as polished, it's gritty, versus something that's like very simplistic and polished. And certainly the lyrics are there too, right? He's definitely an introspective dude. And there's a lot of messages going, throughout here. So, and also guys, guess how long this album is?
The perfect length, 45 minutes.
45:07. It's like the length that we talk about all the time, and that's probably another thing. It's 12 songs, 45 minutes. Nothing overstays its welcome. Great variety.
Is there anything we've congealed with as a group of three more than that general idea of music?
It's definitely up there for sure. But and I'm surprised this is it. When I saw that this was his 6th highest rated album on Best Ever Albums, I was like, okay, I gotta listen to more of the. And that's the other thing too. I know this album really well. I know and the album that came out after this, I think Transcendental Blues from 2000. And those are really the only two of the 22. Those are the only two that I know really well. And I feel like I need to kind of go back.
Well, along with Guitar Town.
Well, I wouldn't say that I know that really. We listened to it for that week, and I haven't gone back to it, so I wouldn't say that I've listened to these two albums multiple times, right? So I feel like I need to get more familiar with Steve Earle. So yeah, big thumbs up for me. I'm glad you guys like him. He's just a really underappreciated artist.
All right. Let's move on to Missy Elliott and Super Duper Fly. Album came out July 16th,